Michelle, as we dive in, and you and I have had so many rich conversations already, and I know this will be another one. What does appreciative inquiry really mean to you?
Well, on a practical level, it's for me, it's thoughtful conversations that are strength-based, that are positive, but that are there to help guide people through tough spots. For me, it's embedded in thoughtful questions, powerful questions. Again, with an end in mind, with action in mind. Whether it's realizing a vision, or whether it's realizing it can be just through two people talking as well. So it's applicable in many places. Yeah.
What is your what is your sense of what creates a powerful appreciative question?
It's meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not coming in being the guru. It's not coming in with the answers. It is, really looking at the situation. And for me, it's studying the situation thoughtfully as well, and creating, if not co-creating, those questions with whoever you're working with. And in fact, I love co-creating those questions. I think that's really important right now because no one has the answers. And anyone that thinks they do, I think is a detriment because we are at this point all pioneers in a brand new world. All bets are off. Everything is upside down. The process, as beautiful as is on the end, but the process is painful. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe we're in that painful period where we're co-discovering together what kind of world we want to live in, and what part I or you or anyone plays, and that's a personal decision.
What do you see the world calling for today from AI as a process and a philosophy and a community?
I think the world is calling for authentic, courageous conversations, not the conversations that keep us where we were, but the kind of conversations that catalyze us forward and challenge us to grow, challenge us to walk into uncomfortable places. Like any discipline or any orientation or any competency, you have to continuously grow and develop it. That means everybody in the community has to grow too, because it's not like appreciative inquiry is going to make you brave by itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to go inside of yourself and do the hard work of growing oneself, both spiritually and otherwise, or mindfully, um, to be able to authentically wade into those conversations. Bring your gifts with you, but understand that you're in uncharted ground and it's okay to make a mistake.
What do you see as sort of that work, that internal work that that AI, we as AI practitioners can be doing or need to be doing to ready ourselves for to have those conversations for ourselves, but to help hold other people into those spaces, right?
That,
So
that's deep work. I mean,
mhm.
if you're going to wade into an environment where people really are welcoming you in to help them, um, with courageous conversations, then the internal work you need to do, the mindfulness, the personal work of confronting your own biases and confronting your own uh, prejudgments and getting clear about that stuff. And if you have them, then naming them. Because I name my, in my storytelling, I let people know that I've had a very uncomfortable life as a Black woman in America. And I make that clear so that people know that I'm coming from that perspective, that I'm laying it out there. First of all, starting with the intention of love. Again, I'll always go back to this. No matter how much we stumbled, if we start with the intention of love and we start with love as a core principle, a core value, somehow or another, that energy transcends all of the bullshit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It does. People can feel when you come from a position of love, instead of coming from a position of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the judgment side and the fear side, and so it's dealing with our own fears and You can't get rid of your fears, but you can name them.
You know, you've talked about, living authentically is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy work to do. And I think that it goes back to a lot of the things that I see people misunderstanding or misapplying AI to, as this, again, that it's, we can't have those, we can't be fully authentic, or I can't bring and share, things like, things that I'm afraid of, traumas, different things that I've had. Have you seen that in your work, or what is your
Oh,
what is your sense of that, for like how we're trying to like invite people to think beyond, again, this positive negative, and like what is generative?
I've definitely seen it in my own questioning. Am I being appreciative? When I'm in the midst among appreciative inquiry community, the community, I'm like, well, uh, can I actually deal with this head on?
Mm-hmm.
Because is it appreciative enough? And I don't think it was ever intended to be a false choice there between being authentic and being appreciative. But I do think it's something the community grapples with. I would challenge everybody out there, including myself, is that sometimes I think we get engrossed in the methodology
Mm-hmm.
versus the intention. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the, the methodology is just that, a methodology. It is not real. It's the human to human conversation, and being, again, that word authentic in that conversation. If you're really going to move an organization today, or people, that you've got to give them permission to be honest, to not be perfect, to show their emotions, to cry, to
To be fully human. I mean, to be
be uncomfortable sometimes. I don't
fully
know how.
human, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you facilitate a conversation or guide a conversation about race and not and you're fully human and not feel uncomfortable in America.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got to give yourself permission. Or the gender issue, which is huge in this
Mm-hmm.
country, well, around the world is huge. But how do you confront those issues that are holding the entire world down from, from flourishing, where everybody can contribute their gifts and be a part of creating this world we all want to live in, without raising the real issues that are buried underneath all this stuff, and that are sometimes intentionally buried.
This, at its heart, it is about that generative questioning, like you were saying, the lifting up. It's the principles. It is that, like you said, that authentic, sort of true, inquiring with the other, including starting with myself, like you were saying, the internal work.
Point that's really important is that we are not in competition with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But we should acknowledge that there are other approaches as well.
Mm-hmm.
That we can draw upon, and they can draw upon the appreciative inquiry approach. So I think there's room for complementary approaches. My vision is seeing all these, the best of the best, coming together to tackle some of these things collaboratively. And I think the core transcending value has to be love. And if that's not there, I don't want to partner with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think we're going to get through any of this successfully without enabling love to flourish. And love, for whatever reason, has been something it's like the L word. Robin Ansami, she's the president of Conversant, said the other day, she said, makes no sense. The one human longing, the most powerful human longing that we have,
Is
we can't bring to work.
no.
That's BS.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And so we've got to redesign these organizations. We've got to enable them to be designed for living, breathing human beings, rather than inheriting these constructs and these old mental models that say, you have to dress this way, you have to look this way,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be this way. We are losing so many people. They can't bring their gifts to the party, and we need everybody collectively to create the world we want.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to your point too, that you and I have talked about, I mean, and the intersectionality of all of these issues today, right? So it's no longer about, like you're saying, you've already touched on, I mean, racial issues and gender issues and climate issues. And so it's sort of, I love your vision and I hear it as a call, as an invitation for us to think about, what are the skills and the tools and the processes that we have collectively that, and like you're saying, the best of the best, like how do we bring that together?
I like the word intersectionality. I actually think it's interdependent.
Interdependent,
I
yeah.
think it goes beyond intersections because
Mm-hmm.
the intersections are, that's where we are right now. But when we can get to the appreciation that we're all connected and we're all interdependent,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you know it or not, if you've got your foot on my neck, you've got your foot on your neck.
Right.
And so, if you help me flourish, you'll flourish. So this whole, we've taken competition way too far and
Mm-hmm.
winning way too far,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, to the detriment of our planet, to the detriment of our children, to the detriment of ourselves.
And that wholeness of being, right? I mean, that gets at that interdependence. What about this? And you said the word authentic a lot, and I know, again, I love your, living authentically is not for the faint of heart. And we talked about that in love. What does that mean to live authentically and to show up in that space of love?
Well, one, I don't think you live authentically without the love, because then you'll hurt someone. I mean, I can authentically be in a conversation and you piss me off
Mm-hmm.
and I can just, slap at you, or I can come from a position of love and try to understand where you're coming from, but authentically tell you that hurt my feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the reason why. It's not for the faint of heart. And, my life story is kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I've walked into very difficult situations voluntarily, and I believe I was able to navigate because of, I think it's really mainly the love. I am, I've had to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I've had no choice, because trying to navigate any other way, just, you have so much pressure as a Black person in this country that if you try to, just blend, or you just try to carry the burden of it, I mean, because it's every day, it's every moment almost. Um, you're going to end up sick, or you're going to end up angry, or you're going to end up, in a bad place. And
Mm-hmm.
so I chose early on in my 20s that, I'm just going to be me. But I was fortunate that I was raised by these two beautiful people that I talk about all the time, my parents, where love was everything. It was the core value of our family, and we were in very tough situations. So that when my dad helped desegregate the de facto segregation on military bases around the world, and so we were one of few Black families to have housing. So life was quite confronting. But I found, even, later in life, when I became one of the first female probation officers in Detroit to handle men, or the deputy warden, female deputy warden of a
Yeah.
prison, or the first woman, on the leadership team of Herman Miller, and the first Black. So how did I do that? I don't, not alone. When I talk about love, there's something that you can tap into that's greater than yourself, and you can call it what you want. For me personally, I'm more spiritual, but that energy is accessible,
Mm-hmm.
and that energy has a way of, um, transcending all of these things like race and sex, and all of this stupid boundaries that we have erected, which
Community, right.
are unnatural,
Mm-hmm.
and the energy is natural.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. That's why I talk about the inner work, because we've got to, when we bring our whole self, that means the inside stuff too.
How do we bridge these artificial divides, like you said, these things that we've had, and have you seen that transcend when somebody on the other, for lack of a better sense, the other side, that's not coming from that space, right? I know you've been right in these situations, and so I think people need to hear that like we still have to stay in those conversations.
Oh, I've seen it over and over again, of course, because at our core, we don't want to be racist. At our core, we don't want to stop another person because they're a woman from flourishing or her voice being heard. At, every time someone does that, there's a tinge inside themselves because they know that that is not where the energy wants to go. So yes, I've seen a, a Herman Miller example will be, and because that's my
I
Camelot.
know.
Well, when we as a leadership team decided that we were going to become a diverse organization, in spite of the fact that we were sitting in Holland, Zeeland, Michigan, and there were most of the people were not didn't have that exposure at the leadership level. We went out to the Aspen Institute for 3 days. We made that commitment, and the agenda was diversity, quality, and change, nothing else. And we talked for 3 days. And we had a couple of outside people just there to provoke. And it was 3 days of uncomfortable but honest conversations. And at the end, the last question was, what do you walk away with? And this guy from Roswell, Georgia, and he was over the plant there, a huge plant in Roswell, Georgia. And really tough guy. And you knew, he wasn't having any of it. But when we got to him, he said, I I walk away with the fact that I have to go home and teach my children and my family to unlearn everything I've taught them.
Mm.
We're all normal people.
Yeah.
But we've put ourselves in a situation to be open to learning and loving. Everyone, every single person has this capacity. When I was over treatment I was the deputy warden over treatment in the prison. I saw the prisoners blossom like you can't believe because we put them in teams with the treatment staff. So they're sitting next to their teachers, their counselors, they're in and community volunteers as peers and they help design programs that affected them. So the fact that we're looking at them and we're saying we believe you have gifts to bring, and then they joined us together and we co-created these phenomenal programs, and they had ownership for them then. But you watch, they didn't have my parents, they didn't have your background. Most of those had nothing. Nothing. So I'm saying the world is, you asked earlier, what is calling to be born? All this powerful life force is calling for us now to drop all that BS and to enable all of us to flourish so that we can kind of come together and create the world that we all want. So AI, I would love to see more of the ability to use this methodology to let the humanness come out, and supportive when they break down, and supportive when they mess up. We all mess up and we all break down, and you can see I take this very seriously because I do believe we're at a point where we have to make a collective choice. Do we destroy ourselves, or do we shed the BS and come together and create something beautiful that we can all grow from and flourish within? It's going to sound like I'm separating, and I'm not separating, but I do believe that women have a special, powerful, beautiful role in leading this new world into the future. And this is my Michele Hunt's bias. I have seen what happens to teams when a woman joins. I've seen the energy of caring and nurturing, and some of the things that are pretty much innate in our soul and our spirit. Um, so I do believe for this to happen, women have to
Mm-hmm.
step up and step out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about asking for permission. And that's the uncomfortable part. It doesn't matter what race you're in, I think, or from, or part of. Women have been oriented to sit back
Step back. Mm-hmm.
and also not to hurt the man's feelings. We have this narrative which is harmful not only to us but to them too.
Right.
I don't think we can get where we need to be until women find the internal courage to be authentically themselves and speak what they're feeling. Yes, appreciatively, but it's going to be uncomfortable, and so that's where the AI community has to figure that out within each individual. How can I be authentically me? Say, let my voice weigh in and still be positive and strength based.
I think from appreciative in that sense of what do we want more of in the world, right?
Yeah.
That sense of which is this authentic wholeness for everybody. But I do sense that we're at this point, like you said, that there's just this energy. Like I love that you're saying, like, where does the energy want to flow? And I just feel it, like like in different circles, right? The
Right.
female.
Right.
Um,
Well, it's going to be that here again, that question about uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable when you first start. And sometimes you butt your head up a lot. But people know when you're coming from a position of love.
mhm,
And so, finding that center before you weigh in. So
mhm.
I think that's the secret sauce. And if you don't want to call it love, call it something else. But it's a life force energy that is all about giving life.
That is the invitation for AI. What gives life? How
Mhm.
do we inquire and create more of what gives life?